Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Pranic Healing Podcast. On this episode, I have a very special guest. Christian Long has been helping thousands of people in over 6 countries, rapidly transforming their lives using energy healing, meditation, and practical spirituality. He is a direct disciple of Grandmaster Choa Kok Si, the modern founder of Pranic Healing and Arhatic Yoga. Christian currently resides in Hawaii of the United States. Please welcome Christian Long. Hi there,
Hey,
Christian.
thanks, Dr. Jason. I'm good. I'm again super appreciative for being on here, being able to share the teacher's teachings and my own little part of the world over here.
Yeah, I mean and we were talking before with the audience. I've been a big fan of Christian's even before he probably even knew I was a fan of his. But the most recent one, Christian, for just to let you know live is I was listening to your hour long video testimonial of Spiritual Vacation, the most recent one, and I listened to the whole thing straight through, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. Which is what spurred me to, you know what, Christian's a great person to have on the podcast. Why haven't I done it yet? So that's the that was the root cause of me, that inspiration coming on. But I gave you sort of a short bio, Christian, but I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about your background, how you got into chronic healing, because today's topic for the podcast is really special. The title is Origin of a Reluctant Healer: 3 Ways to Skyrocket Your Spiritual Development with Less Suffering, which I don't know about anyone else. I would love to know those 3 ways for myself. But before we kind of start with that, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Christian, and your journey in your life and into chronic healing?
Yeah, I'll do what I can to condense it within a few minutes. It's pretty pretty extensive, but I was raised in Springfield, or I should say, I was born in Springfield, Massachusetts, in 1980, and my parents divorced in 1979. So you could say that I was a bit of a surprise for the family. And I have 2 older brothers, 10 and 11 years older than me, so much older than me. And I think the impetus for my spiritual interest started at 8 years old. I remember when I was watching a PBS special called Ring of Fire, where it was 2 brothers from England who would travel the world filming. They were like photojournalists, right? And they would be filming people who had unique abilities, psychic abilities, healing abilities, just special people. That was the thing that they were most excited about. And when they were in Krakatoa, they interviewed this guy by the name of John Chang. And I remember when I was a little kid, I was about 8 years old, and I saw him demonstrating things that had never been filmed before. And he even found out shortly thereafter the filming, he says, "I didn't know you guys were filming this for the public. I thought you were just filming this for your own personal collection." And then, the person became very, very upset, and, they had a fallout with one another that they didn't rebuild until a decade later, and then had another fallout with one another. But that's a story for another day. But I remember watching a human being light a piece of paper on fire with only their hands. And I thought, if he's capable of that, what else are we capable of? Even as an 8-year-old kid, I thought that. And so that kind of was the start of my interest into the spiritual world, into metaphysics, into human potential. I became a certified nutritionist at 16. I became a personal trainer at 17. I was actually the most successful personal trainer at my YMCA's 85-year history in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I love giving presentations to the little kids, to the teenagers, to any adults that would come in and be interested in health and wellness and fitness. But then I got exposed to meditation full bore at 19 with transcendental meditation that I practiced religiously morning and evening for about 4 years. And I had such profound experiences. Even my first time ever doing the transcendental meditation technique, after the 20 minutes, I opened up my eyes and I asked the instructor, "Where did I go?" And the instructor was like, "Well, most people don't have those experiences until 5 or 6 years of regular practice." And I had it my first time meditating. So it was very familiar to me. And I was fascinated by it. I said, I want to dedicate the rest of my life to whatever it is that I was experiencing. I had a resting heart rate as a 19-year-old of 125 beats per minute. And after 6 months of meditating, my resting heart rate was 72 beats a minute. Now my heart rate is around 40 beats a minute resting, not like, going full bore in the gym, but resting heart rate is 40 to 45 beats per minute. So I credit that to my practice in meditation, my practice in energy healing, which I learned Reiki, which a lot of your listeners are going to be familiar with Reiki. It's a 90-plus-year-old system of energy medicine. It's probably the most prevalent practice form of energy medicine on the planet, and it's about 90 years old. And I was exposed to that the same week that I learned transcendental meditation. So meditation and healing have really gone hand in hand in my spiritual practice. And then when I took an advanced meditation class in Fairfield, Iowa at the Maharishi University of Management, I met someone who is a Arhatic yogi and a pranic healer. And she said to me, hey, would you like to come out and visit me sometime in Canada? We were taking an advanced meditation class where we were meditating 4 to 6 hours a day, not pranic healing and not Arhatic yoga, but I had such beautiful experiences that I wasn't really open and receptive to learning anything new. I said, hey, I've been doing this for almost 5 years. It fulfills my needs. And then all of a sudden, certain things started happening that I would read a certain book by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, right? The person who brought TM to the United States or brought TM to the world. And I would have these experiences in my meditation, but then I would talk to people and people couldn't give me clarification. They couldn't help me go, well, this is what's happening. So it was very like hit or miss. Like this person had their viewpoint, this person had their viewpoint, this person had their viewpoint. And then at some point in my experiences, people stopped answering my questions altogether. And I'm like, is there some secret society within the TM world that I've reached the door to that I can't like penetrate? And so that was really, really frustrating for me. So when I met this girl and she introduced me to pranic healing, it really opened up my eyes. She actually said to me one time, she goes, hey, after I went to go visit her in Vancouver, British Columbia, she says, would you like a pranic healing session? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That'd be amazing. I don't know what it is. You say you deal with chakras or whatever? Sure. So I sat down. She gave me like a 40-minute healing. And all of a sudden, things I could never feel before, I could start feeling. I could feel things spinning inside of my body and outside of my body. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And I even like pointed to the part of my body. I go, I feel something inside and outside of my body right here. What's going on? She goes, oh, that's your solar plexus chakra. And I'm like, why can I feel it now and I couldn't feel it earlier? She goes, well, because it's really clean right now. And so you're just more aware of it being cleaner and healthier than before it was dirty and congested. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so that was the thing that made me go, okay, there are things around spirituality, around meditation, around energy that I had not been exposed to. And so when I got involved in pranic healing and then upgraded to Arhatic yoga, all of my questions and many, many more were being answered clearly, succinctly, and made me go, okay, this is what I can dedicate the rest of my life to. So when I learned pranic healing in 2004, March of 2004, and then Arhatic yoga in July of 2004, I said, this is what I want to dedicate the rest of my life to. So I've been a full-time pranic healer for over a decade. So not my entire time in pranic healing, because I was doing lots of free healings and then little baby healings of $20 here, $60 here. Then gradually over time, I built a book of business, got lots of referrals, got lots of success for clients that I worked with. And this is what I've dedicated the past 19 years of my life to. And I love it. I love Master Choa. I love Master Choa's teachings, teachers, co-disciples. Yeah, we have ups and downs with each other. Sometimes we're super warm and fuzzy. Other times
Like
we
family, same thing
yeah,
with
yeah,
family.
you're like
Yeah,
family. Exactly. When we rub each other the wrong way, and
right.
we are a mirror for each other's good stuff and not so good stuff. But it's a fascinating world. Any opportunity to share Master Choa's teachings, I'm always on board for. I've done, at this point, on YouTube, my YouTube channel, Inner Transformation Group, I've done over 600 videos on pranic healing, Arhatic yoga, meditation, chakras, soul, kundalini, all kinds of stuff. So this is another opportunity to spread the teacher's message.
Wow. Thank you, Christian, for that, wonderful, introduction. And yes, I definitely commend all the videos and the work that you've done. Again, I've been a big fan of yours before you even knew it, and I'm so happy today we can kind of close the circle for us and really speak about something that we're both passionate about. I just kind of want to recap for the audience. It sounds like with your introduction and with your journey into spirituality, it started at a really young age. And I'm quite impressed at 8 years old for you to be inspired by this show of man lighting a piece of paper on fire, right? For most 8-year-olds, it's like, oh, cool, that guy's got a cool power, right? But for you, it's like, no, you wanted to understand the deeper meaning of it, right? How did it happen? Why did it happen? Right? And it kind of carried over too with your TM practices when they really couldn't explain to you, what's going on, right? And sometimes it feels like there's almost like a hidden back door that you're not allowed access to in understanding some of these teachings, which is to highlight where we are now with pranic healing, Arhatic yoga. Master Choa really made it clear, really simple, and the mechanisms of action for meditation, energy healing. It's all so simple, all so easy to understand, and I can hear your enthusiasm when it's like you finally get that light bulb moment. It's like, wow, this is what I've been looking for, and now I have it, and now I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life spreading these teachings. So that's really amazing, Christian, and part of that I want to kind of cover is because I really want to ask you the title because it's the origin of a reluctant healer. So,
Yeah.
what do you mean being a reluctant healer? Because it sounds like right now you're an amazing healer, right? You help thousands of people. You have an amazing business, right? You're transforming so many lives. But what do you mean being a reluctant healer, and how has that journey really again helped you develop spiritually, and then of course with
Yeah.
less suffering, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent, Dr. Jason. Great question of what the heck is the origin of the reluctant healer? The reason I chose that is because my experience of being around spiritual people, healers, yogis, meditators, over the past, I say pretty consistently about 23, 24 years, is that everyone seems to be so loving and so giving, and their hearts are so activated of like, how can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I do something for you? But when I started on the path, I had zero interest in doing any of that. I had zero interest in healing people, helping people, maybe not guiding people because that's something I've always had an inclination towards of like teaching. That's something I've always been very passionate about, even before pranic healing or Arhatic yoga. But when it comes to like, okay, this person is suffering with a headache and I have to step up and do a protocol to remove that headache, not interested. This person is suffering with back pain, you need to step up and do a protocol for back pain, not interested. What I was interested in with pranic healing and Arhatic yoga was the meditation and spiritual side. Because I came from a background with TM that you would meditate in the morning for 20 minutes, you'd meditate in the evening for 20 minutes, and then the more advanced practice, you would meditate 2 hours in the morning and you would meditate 2 to 4 hours in the evening. So it was all about meditation, meditation, meditation. So it wasn't about being active in the world. It wasn't about being mentally generous, emotionally generous, physically going out of your way and doing service. It was, okay, how I serve the world is through my spiritual practice. So that was my conditioning and my training early on. So isn't it interesting that many people in the early years of pranic healing and Arhatic yoga would ask Master Choa, hey, can we just offer Arhatic yoga separately without having people have to take basic pranic healing, advanced pranic healing, pranic psychotherapy? And Master Choa says, no, because they have to have the will to do good. And they also have to be able to heal themselves when things inevitably come up in their spiritual practice. So here's the thing about Arhatic yoga. If you have 5 times the amount of energy, 10 times the amount of energy, 100 times the amount of energy, what the heck are you going to do with it? So you have an aura that goes from 2 to 4 inches to 35 to 50 feet to a mile. Okay, great. What's the purpose? What's the purpose of having that big energy body? To do big service, right? To do good things in the world. Otherwise, and I remember it's not so much nowadays because the consciousness of pranic healing and Arhatic yoga has shifted tremendously. But in the early days, everybody would be like, scan my aura, scan my chakras. How big are they? How big is my spiritual cord? How big is my crown? How big is my heart? How big is my basic? Scan me, validate me, validate me, validate me, right? And people were like, wait a minute, is it really about how big my aura, how big my chakras are, or is it the what it is I'm doing with a big aura and with the big chakras? And so the people who are living a life of service don't care how big their aura is, don't care how big their chakras are, don't care whether they have a golden body or not. They're simply being of service to humanity. And it took me a long, 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 long time to get that. Because again, I didn't come into the world of spirituality and healing with a big fat open heart because I had so much heart trauma, physical heart trauma, emotional heart trauma. I was brought up in a very traumatic household as a kid. Lots and lots and lots of pain. Then my previous incarnation karma, all these different things. So I'm grateful that I had to take the basic classes, healing classes, before I could ever take the advanced meditation classes in Arhatic yoga. So that's why I was reluctant. I always admire people that are like, oh my God, I learned this amazing healing technique. I can't wait to apply it on my wife, on my husband, on my boyfriend, on my girlfriend, on my friends and family. Like, I never thought that. I never thought, I just learned how to disconnect cords from that person. Who else could I disconnect unhealthy connections and cords that are draining people? No, I was like, cool, that's a cool technique I could maybe use on myself. And even then, it was maybe use on myself. Because all I was focused on was the spiritual practices, the meditation practices, which for some of the more advanced listeners of today's podcast, there are certain meditations that you do in Arhatic yoga that rapidly accelerate your development, but they also rapidly accelerate your karma. And if you don't have anything in your karmic bank account and you start accelerating your karma, you're going to go into a deficit very quickly, and then you're going to be karmically bankrupted very quickly. And that's what happened to me after about 3 years of intense practices in Arhatic yoga. I didn't have enough good karma in my bank account of healing many other people, serving many other people, tithing, etc. And so basically my entire world crumbled from the bottom up. Now, is that to make people afraid of Arhatic yoga? No, but it's about having a clear understanding of what you're getting into and how to do it properly, which leads us into our points for today on how to rapidly accelerate your spiritual path with having the least amount of suffering.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Christian. That's I'm trying to collect all of that because it's I think your journey and your experiences are one of the constellation of experiences that a lot of people uh, may come into pranic healing, right? One thing that I think about, and I love the way that you described it as your position, the way that you kind of entered the door of pranic healing was you were serving you were serving people by living your spiritual life, right? You were doing the things that were necessary for yourself to improve yourself so that maybe you have better energy, you're not as congested, you have a much more positive influence around the people around you. But never, going back to the title, never really looking to heal someone, never really looking to help someone, physically, emotionally, or energetically, which on the other side of the spectrum, a lot of people might come to pranic healing looking to do that, right? Just to help people and not help themselves. And in
Right.
the analogy I like to go back to, and I loved how you described, pranic healing is the healing arm, and then Arhatic yoga, which for the audience that doesn't know what Arhatic yoga is, it's basically a spiritual practice. It's a system that, like Christian says, helps skyrocket your spiritual development, literally, with less suffering. So there are certain meditations that Christian highlighted that, again, increase your chakras, the size, your aura, the intensity, the activation. But with that, it comes with the accelerated positive karma and negative karma, which you kind of highlighted with your experience. And I'm so grateful to hear that, because a lot of people just like, it's like, oh, how can I reach nirvana? How can I ascend, and how can I be one with my higher soul? How can I be one with God? And it's like, whoa, there's a couple of things you have to do. I mean, you could do it very fast, very rapid, but usually that means it's pretty intense. And then, speaking to your situation, I'm just so grateful to hear sort of your transformation, because it sounded like you were a natural teacher anyway, right? You were like what, the top trainer at the YMCA for over 85 years, or in terms of like your production. So for me to hear that, it's like, oh, Christian, he's a clear trainer, teacher, guider, right? In terms of people and their physical health, but maybe not necessarily with energy and spirituality. So I love that change. And to kind of move the conversation, right? How we spoke about Arhatic yoga being this spiritual practice system that enhances our development. You kind of listed out three steps, three principles, and I wanted to talk about principle number one that you kind of wrote, and it says you must walk your path. And that's an interesting statement. So can you tell us in the audience, what does that mean, and how does that relate to you know um, our spiritual development?
Excellent. So the first, if you want to skyrocket your spiritual development with the least amount of suffering or less suffering, right? And I think we'd all would sign up for that. Um, you have to have the recognition that you are 100% responsible for your life. I remember Grandmaster Choa Kok Si said, um, the maturity of the soul is dependent upon how much it takes responsibility for its life. So if you think about people that are immature, do they take responsibility for their lives, for their jobs, for where they are, for their property, for their house, for their whatever it is, their lot in life? Do they take responsibility? Typically not, right? The more mature a soul is, not only does it take responsibility for its life, but it also partially takes responsibility for the lives of others, right? So if you're a child, it's all about you. But as a parent, it's about you, probably your spouse, and your child or children, which comes with more responsibilities. If you run a company, you're responsible for you, and then you're responsible for your customers, your vendors, your suppliers, your employees. So your responsibility grows. So when you come in with the mindset of, okay, I'm 100% responsible for my life, then you stop putting the onus for your success and failure on the shoulders of other people. So meaning, if you meet a spiritual teacher, which I've seen this happen many times, if you meet a spiritual teacher who leads you astray, you can also consider that a blessing, because you are karmically entitled to be led astray by that teacher, right? That was your
That's deep.
karma.
That is
So what
deep.
you can do is right? You can be angry with that teacher. You can say, this teacher took advantage of me. They conned me out of money. They sexually took advantage of me. They did all these horrible things to me. So you can spend the rest of your life angry, frustrated, and not taking responsibility, which doesn't alleviate your suffering, which doesn't allow you to move forward, and actually keeps you in a rut for the rest of your incarnation. Versus, okay, that person told me this, and this. I followed it. It didn't benefit me. but at least I learned what not to do. At the very least, I learned what not to do. And then there are other nuggets that maybe I learned along the way, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. My own example within TM. I'm extremely grateful for my experiences in the transcendental meditation movement, the people that I met, the experiences that I had in meditation, and what I learned about the spiritual path. One of the biggest things that it taught me that I didn't immediately see when I came over to Pranic healing or Arhatic yoga was they say, you got to meditate in the morning and you got to meditate in the evening. It was very firm. It was very, this is what you do. When I came into Pranic healing and we're talking about the Twin Hearts meditation, that was never stressed from all the people within the community. But within the TM community, it was very stressed. So I developed a habit of meditating every single day. And I developed a habit of no matter what is happening in your life, you meditate every day, you connect every day, you go up every day, right? And so I'm super grateful for that experience, but I could have taken the negative things that I experienced within the TM community and then brought that and then dragged that into my experience with pranic healing and Arhatic yoga and other spiritual schools that I've gone to and studied with, but that would not be serving the purpose. So the teacher's job is to point the path. Your job as the disciple, one who is disciplined, is to walk the path with eyes wide open, right?
Yeah.
So the teacher says, okay, here's the path, and then you have to tread it. But what a lot of people do on the spiritual path is that they put the onus of their development on the healer, on the mentor, on the guru. I'm not advancing quickly enough because of the person healing me isn't doing a good enough job, or my teacher isn't doing a good enough job, or my teacher's not following up with me enough. And that's not how it works. If you want to be close to your spiritual teacher, here's a clue. If you want to be close to your spiritual teacher, you do the work of your teacher. You move the mission of your teacher forward, and then you will have more support from more places than you could possibly imagine. Right? Going back to the reluctant healer, I got into healing because it was all about me, myself, and I. So it was very difficult in the beginning, right? And then as I started to realize, wait a minute, my purpose is to serve humanity, then more and more support came, more and more help came, more and more guidance came, right?
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
that's the first one is you have to take responsibility for your life and you have to walk the path. Your teacher cannot meditate for you. Your teacher cannot heal you in the sense of like, you have lessons to learn and experiences to have, and you cannot avoid them. You can't run from your karma.
Wow. So much to unpack there. That was an excellent explanation. And, just by you talking about it, it's like, oh, wow, there's some things that I'm avoiding too in part of my spiritual path, right? I always go back to Master Ko, and how he's his one of his mantras is being in the spiritual path does not give you an excuse to fail, right? Or not take responsibility of your own karma, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And also, part of that is like you said with Master Choa, the system is so simple and effective, but like you said, the teacher look at where the teacher is pointing, not at the teacher's finger. And I think a lot of people get fixated at the teacher's finger, meaning, like you said, how's my aura? How's my chakras? Oh, I can't do it because my solar plexus is congested. I can't do it because I don't have enough money. I can't do it because I don't have enough time, right? These are all, potentially valid excuses for many people. But like you said, you must walk your path. You must, tread the path that you have chosen. And it is part of your karma in order to achieve your desired spiritual development, right? And with the system of Arhatic yoga, it's really such an amazing and simple way to bypass a lot of these obstacles. Again, without having to endure suffering, which unfortunately or fortunately for some people, that is the last way of of basically achieving their spiritual development, or their desired place in life. So I wanted to kind of connect that, right? So you must walk your path, right? That was number one. And number two, it says be an example, which I'm curious to understand what you mean, be an example.
Be an example. So again, when um, I'm sharing from many years of experience of my personal successes and failures, and then many successes and failures I've seen of co-disciples, and many successes and failures of clients that I've worked with, thousands of clients at this point. And so what I've noticed is everyone wants everyone else to change in order for world peace to be established, right? Because that's where most all religions and mystery schools, ancient mystery schools, modern day mystery schools, it's all pointing in the direction of oneness and pointing in the direction of world peace, right? And we're so fixated on pushing the world into, okay, you need to meditate more, you need to do more healing, you need to do more service, you need to do more tithing, you need to go to more retreats, you need to go to meditation and healing clinic, you need to do all these different things. And I realized that if you truly want to transform somebody, there's three things to do when you truly want to transform somebody. You have to be an example, number one. You have to be that. You have to embody what it is that you're teaching. So instead of telling people to meditate, if you meditate daily, you will awaken that quality within another person. If you practice courage daily, you will awaken courage within others. If you practice willpower daily, you will awaken willpower within others. If you practice compassion daily, you will awaken compassion within others. Because that's some of the things that I've noticed that people have so much resistance to personal development and spiritual development, is because everybody is always telling them what to do. But then as people reflect on who is telling them, they're like, but this person is angry all the time, but they're telling me about how I need to meditate. This person has all these money problems, but they're telling me how to be more prosperous and successful. I don't understand. So be an example. Bless the person with those qualities would be number two. And then number three, have the person get regular healing, right?
Mm.
People will listen to you if you are an embodiment of the thing that you're teaching them or talking about, right? One of my mentors said a long time ago that it's not about the message, it's about the messenger, because it's a transference of energy from God through the spiritual lineage, through the spiritual cord, through the person to the other person. So if you have a teeny tiny aura, teeny tiny chakras, teeny tiny spiritual connection, you could be giving pearls of wisdom and it's not going to have the same power behind it. So it's not about the message, it's about who is giving the message, right? There's a lot of people that talk about Om, right? We always know Om, the universal sound. And we make the assumption that if I just make the Om sound good enough, melodic enough, pleasant enough, it will transform the people who are listening to it or are within earshot of it. Versus a person who does a horrible Om. It doesn't sound pleasant. It's not warm and fuzzy, but the person who's Oming has a gigantic spiritual cord. That has much more transformative power. So it's the messenger, not the message.
Mm.
And the way you become the messenger is by doing your spiritual practices regularly, by being an embodiment, being an example, practicing the virtues, and that will encourage other people to be that. It would be like an overweight personal trainer telling you to eat better and work out more often. You'd be like, you're not an embodiment of health and wellness. Why would I be listening to you? A homeless person teaching you about finances, about saving and investing, about tripling your income, right? Wouldn't make sense. The message could be the exact same. A millionaire giving the advice and a homeless person giving the advice. The message could be literally the exact same, but the transformative power will only be through the person who is the multimillionaire in that example, right? And Master Choa talked about you can tell the consciousness of the people by the books that are on the best-selling list, right? So if you go to the best-selling list on Amazon or the best-selling list at Barnes & Nobles or Books A Million or whatever bookstore you can get access to, the most popular books on that list will tell you the consciousness of the people. If you want to learn about money, you have to be able to scan the energy of the person's basic chakra, right? This is taught in basic pranic healing to encourage all the people to learn pranic healing, right? So if the person's basic chakra, which is the chakra of money and materialization, is smaller than your basic chakra, there's not going to be a lot of value the person can transmit to you. But if they have a gigantic basic chakra in comparison to your basic chakra, then they can empower you with the energy of prosperity. If you're reading a book on spirituality and the person's crown chakra is enormous compared to your crown chakra, then it helps to listen to them because they have the energy to transmit. So it's not just the message, it's the messenger that counts. That's the most important thing.
Beautiful. I love it.
So be an
That
example.
yes. Um, I think that that was such a great analogy. Be the messenger, not just the message, right? And I think it's very easy in nowadays to talk, right? To talk like, oh, like you said, some people are like backseat drivers in terms of spirituality, right? Or finances.
Right.
Like, you got to invest this way, you got to meditate this way, you got to do X, Y, and Z. But when you look at their life, it's like, well, where's the evidence that shows that you're walking your talk, right? Or any semblance of that. And that's what I love about pranic healing, Arhatic yoga, is that it's really practical. These teachings are so universal, so practical, so easy to understand, and all you have to do is literally follow simple instructions, which is the next part of the three ways to kind of skyrocket your spiritual development with less suffering. And Master Choa, he was truly an amazing teacher, guru, for our modern times. But the teachings that he has brought to us, and I love what you said, because especially when Master Choa left his physical body, there was a lot of practitioners that were missing him physically. Right, he's not here physically anymore. But like you said, if you practice the teachings, if you practice and embody the teachings fully, honestly, earnestly, consistently, it's as if Master Choa is right there, right? The teachings, the guru, it's all there. So you're not separated, you're not disconnected, and that was something um, special for me, because I never had the chance to meet Master Choa, physically. But I know when I practice Twin Hearts, when I practice Arhatic yoga, right, there's such a almost deeper connection. I can connect and feel with the teacher than just imagining being with him in physical presence. But the only reason I can feel that way is because of his teaching, which is follow simple instructions. And you think that's an easy, self-explanatory, uh, principle or guide, but it's really not. So I wanted you, Christian, can you tell us a little bit about that, and why is that your last one on the list? Because not, people are like, well, duh, don't you just follow what you're taught?
Oh, I could have an hour-long talk easily just on this one sutra. So Grandmaster Choa Kok Si, like most great spiritual teachers, have quotes or aphorisms within their school, right? So one of the aphorisms that the teacher is known for is the aphorism, follow simple instructions. And there's a funny story about following simple instructions to relate to you guys. So one time there was some class. I don't know if it was a Arhatic yoga retreat or it was an advanced class. I'm not exactly sure, but Master Cho was teaching, and he brought on stage one of the master pranic healers. Now, this is a person who has easily spent over a decade with Grandmaster Choa Kok Si, who had taught thousands of people pranic healing, basic pranic healing, advanced pranic healing, pranic psychotherapy, pranic crystal healing. There's over 22 classes in pranic healing and Arhatic yoga. So you would say that this person is an expert, right? All intents purposes, this person is an expert. That's why they're considered a master. So Master Choa says, okay, teach them. And of course, the teacher knows ahead of time. That's why he's doing what he's doing. So he brings the master up on stage and he says, okay, teach everyone the breathing technique, this particular breathing technique. So the master starts teaching the breathing technique, and there is a slight modification, which is really funny because it's not that slight. It's slight to the unobserved, uninitiated, a person who doesn't know, right? And and Master Choa says, who taught you how to do that technique like that? And the master was like, I just thought we could do, I saw it in a book. I just thought we could do it that way. And he says, is that what the teacher taught you? And he says, no. And so Master Choa aloud was shaking his head, and he says, the teacher is not even out of his physical body yet, and the students are already distorting the teachings. Not even out of his physical body, and the teachings are already being distorted. So within a very simple technique, a breathing technique, not super complicated. This isn't an insult to the master at all, because I recently got corrected on something, and I was like, I've been practicing this for almost 2 decades. What do you mean? So I was, so think about one breathing technique that was being distorted within the lifetime of the physical master being alive. How much more for the religions? 500 years, 2,000 years, 2,500 years. Think about how much more their teachings, their technologies, their techniques were distorted. So that's why Grandmaster Choa Kok Si says, okay, I want everything written down in my books. I want everything recorded for my CDs and MP3s. And then I want the energy to be solidified in places and disciples for the work to carry on without being distorted. Because when something is distorted, it loses its power and potency. It loses its power and potency. It's like diluting something. If you've ever played the game Telephone or Whisper Down the Lane, where you have a circle of people, one person has an idea, they whisper that idea into the ear of somebody else, and then as it goes from person to person to person to person to person, it gets distorted. It gets distorted because somebody purposely distorts it out of the gag. It gets distorted because the person talking wasn't clear enough, wasn't loud enough. The person listening couldn't hear it properly, made up their own whatever. And so by the end of the game, the last person it's not even close to the same sentence. Completely different meaning. So we don't only do that with our teachers, but we do that within our own energy body. So we can't even follow simple instructions within ourselves, meaning our higher soul is constantly talking to us, constantly sending us a signal. Do this, don't do this. Do this, don't do this. Get in this relationship, leave this relationship. Start this business, get out of this job. Do this with your health, don't do this with your health. The higher soul is constantly whispering to us, but because of all the inner noise within ourselves and the energy coming through us, it's getting distorted in the crown, and then a little bit more distorted in the forehead, and a little bit more distorted in the ajna, and a little bit more distorted in the throat, and a little bit more distorted in the heart. And as it permeates our system, it's not the same message that came from the higher soul, that came from the lineage, that came from our spiritual teacher, that came from God, right? So following simple instructions is a key to rapidly evolving and with the least amount of suffering. I remember people would take basic pranic healing classes. Basic. We're not talking advanced. We're not talking Arhatic yoga. We're not talking higher Arhatic. We're just talking basic pranic healing 101. And the first day, people are already changing the protocol. Based on what? You have a protocol that was developed by a master of healing who can see energy, who has done the protocol at least 10,000 times, has an 85% success rate of removing a headache, lower back pain, sinusitis, cuts, bruises, strains, sprains, colds, flus, etc., and then taught that to thousands of people around the world who are able to produce similar results. And he finally codifies that into a book. And then a person with no background in energy, no background in healing, does the protocol once and then starts changing it. And I've seen that time and time and time and time again. So you cannot produce a miraculous healing if you can't follow a miraculous protocol, right? So Master Choa would say, if you can't follow simple instructions, how can you be expected to follow more complicated or advanced instructions, right? Because everyone wants to be enlightened yesterday. But are you following the simple, mundane, obvious things now? Are you doing your physical exercises properly? Are you doing your breathing exercises properly? Are you doing the meditation practice properly? And there's all these nuances within each of them, right? So the number one reason we do not follow simple instructions is pride, negative pride. That's the number one reason we don't follow simple instructions. And we all succumb to negative pride. Until we reach the level of a holy master, we will be suffering with pride. Even a saint, even a great saint, a senior saint, can fall due to pride. Only a holy master has transcended negative pride. So we have a long way to go. So we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to be understanding to ourselves. We have to go, okay, I don't know it all. I don't have all the answers. Let me go back to the simple instructions. That's it.
Yeah.
In Arhatic yoga, people change their practices, right? Arhatic yoga has a manual. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. The healing protocols, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? If you're having this happen with your finances, do step 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're having this in your physical health, step 1, 2, 3, 4. All these steps is a recipe. So it's like you have Gordon Ramsay making your dishes and telling you how to get the best ingredients and the best way to make the best seasoning and best food and best cooking method. And you've never made a meal in your life. And you go, you know what? I'm just going to wing it. And then you would be like,
but I'm better than Gordon Ramsay. I know.
yeah, of
Deep
course.
down, I know. I'm pretty sure I'm better than Gordon Ramsay. Come on,
Of
he's
course. Of
not a good.
course. Yeah.
He might be a good cook, but he curses a lot, so that makes me a little better, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. Well, that's there was so much again to unpack there, Christian. I think what we started with, follow simple instructions, is like you mentioned. Um, the teacher is pointing the direction, the path for us to walk down. A lot of the times, like you said, it's just like a recipe. People think that they're better than the teacher, right? And because of pride, right? And we all get affected by pride. And you mentioned until you get to holy master, which is basically a level of spiritual development that's way beyond us for right now, is really the only way that you kind of can become immune to it. But like you said, Master Choa spent his entire life dedicated to experimenting, testing, making sure this is safe, effective, and efficient. Right? And you said 85% of the time. So, and I think, and I find this to be true too, with a lot of people that may be new to spirituality, or even not even new, like they've been practicing for years and years. They have a certain way of thinking that, oh, it's better this way. It's going to be better if I teach it this way or say this way. Like in the example when you mentioned that master pranic healer, just a slight adjustment to that breathing exercise, right? And I loved how you said it. The teacher is still in the physical body, and yet the teachings are being altered live in front of him. So I think that's so important, like you said, to bring it, even bigger picture. Think about all the religions out there. Christianity, Hinduism, in the Kabbalah. As we know, of course, Master Choa has courses in these as well, showing the inner teachings of all these different religions. And it just goes and shows and highlight, wow, without Master Choa, without him making it so simple, without him kind of enlightening but showing the deeper teachings beyond pranic healing, but in these universal teachings that we see all around us, it's it's hard to do this alone. It's hard for you to study this alone. It would take you thousands of lifetimes. So I'm so grateful for you sharing this with us, because those 3 steps, right? You must walk your path, be an example, right? And follow simple instructions. I don't know how much easier that can get, in terms of what we're talking about today, which is really, how do you accelerate your spiritual development without suffering, right? Without um, the windfall of negative karma that you might have built up, lifetimes before. And the key is Arhatic yoga, pranic healing, and Master Choa's teachings.
Master Choa said, Arhatic yoga is a system. And he says, follow the simple instructions. I remember I was in class when he said this, follow the simple instructions or you're on your own. And he wasn't saying that as a threat, and he wasn't saying that as something to make everybody scared. He was saying, look, through my experimentation, through my research, through my understanding, and the feedback that I've gotten, I know if you follow this system, it will produce this result. But if you take out aspects of the system, put in other aspects from other systems, mish it all together, I don't know what that will give you. Right? That's why pranic healing is protected by an angel. Arhatic yoga is protected by an angel. These angels keep the integrity of the energy in the school and the teachings. So when people plug into it, they are empowered. But if you start ripping apart the teachings and the techniques, the energy is not there anymore. It's actually quite fascinating, but that's another
Yeah,
conversation.
I
But
I didn't know that part. Thank you. That's new to me. Wow, that's incredible. And it just makes sense, right? In terms of what we're talking about, in the integrity of the energy, but how to make it, the teachings, receptive but also conductive throughout all students. You have to, it's follow the system. And one thing I also like to quote back to, Master Choa says, spirituality is more complicated than the Amazon, right? It's like, I've walked the path. Master Choa said, I've treaded the path. I've tested it, experimented. This is what got me out of the Amazon. So this is for you. Unless you want to get lost in the Amazon, you're on your own, right? So
sure.
so
And
that's something I
now
always
are
go
there,
back to.
to go to that, Dr. Jason, are there other paths out
Sure.
of the Amazon? Yes, but he doesn't know those paths. He knows the path that he trekked, that he cleared, and that he can tell the students, walk this path and you'll arrive to the destination that I've arrived at, right? And that's it. So, and that requires humility. It's not about letting go of our it's not about letting go of our mental faculties. It's about letting go of our inner resistance. It's about humbling ourselves to, okay, I don't have all the answers. Let me experiment with what this guy is telling me, and let me see what the feedback that I get is. Instead of, no, it doesn't work, or no, I need to change it immediately. Follow simple instructions, experiment, get some feedback, and then go, oh, he said, if I do this meditation, I'll have more inner peace. He says, if I tithe, I'll have more prosperity. He says, if I sweep my solar plexus, this many times, I'll have less stress. Okay, I've done those things and it's accurate. I'll keep following. I'll keep listening. I'll keep practicing. That's all.
Yeah, and like Master Choa said, you have free will. Don't follow my teachings blindly. Don't follow any teachings blindly. Right? Test,
Correct.
experiment, experience for yourself. And
Correct.
that's as simple as it gets. Um, well, Christian, it's been an amazing podcast interview. I don't think I've expected anything quite like this, and I'm so grateful to just the origin of your story, right? Being a reluctant healer, right? The kid growing up in Massachusetts, just having a lot of spiritual aspiration, but not necessarily finding the perfect path, but it was the path for you, right? Speaking about the principles that we talked today, and you walked your own path. You had to deal with your the things that you needed to heal from, the things that you needed to learn, and now you became an example, right? You are an example of the teachings. You've dedicated your life to it, through your business, through the people that you've healed, through the lives you've transformed through Master Choa's teachings. And I believe part of your success is, again, you're just following simple instructions, right? Which is, again, not hard, but it takes a level of humility. It takes a level of discipline, which, in your background, you've been trained very well in since TM. And really, it takes a level of faith and belief in yourself and in the teachings as well. So I'm so grateful for our conversation
Well
because it
said.
really helps anchor the spiritual, practical aspects of pranic healing and Arhatic yoga, and how energy and understanding energy is the bridge to spirituality in all the things that we've talked about. So before I let you go, Christian, if there was one last piece of advice you can give our audience out there based on our topic today, what would that one last piece of advice be?
Ooh, last piece of advice based on what we talked about. Ugh, so many more topics. Um, I would say the one that I've been meditating on more over the past couple of years, and I've been seeing it more interwoven throughout all the classes in pranic healing, all the retreats within pranic healing and Arhatic yoga, is knowing that you are the soul, not having it just be a theory. It sounds nice, it sounds warm and fuzzy. It's like, yeah, yeah, of course, I'm the soul. But really experiencing who you are is the most important thing that we can be part of in this incarnation. In fact, at a retreat a few years ago with one of the master pranic healers, he says your priority in this incarnation is self-realization. That's your priority. Everything else is secondary to that. Now, does he mean throw out your responsibilities and stop your job and stop taking care of your family? No, not at all. But the thing that is most important is knowing who you are. And who you are is a being of light, a being of love, and a being of power, and experiencing that. And when you experience it, not theoretically, not mentally, but when you experience who you truly are, just even a teeny tiny baby glimpse of who you are, it will transform your entire incarnation. So that would be my suggestion is finding out who you are.
Mm. Simple enough, right? Find out who you are. Know thyself, as they say.
Know thyself.
Well, it's been an amazing conversation, Christian. Appreciate all of your words of wisdom and sharing your experiences. I think not only I can speak for the audience, even for myself, I really took away a lot of value from our conversation. And, I think every one of us, even though we're in different parts of our spiritual journey, our spiritual development, when we get time to reflect on the teachings, it really, again, no matter where you're at, it really helps us gain so much more clarity, trust, faith, and just discipline, just following the teachings, following the footsteps of what Master Choa has laid out for us.
And I
So
want to acknowledge you as well, Dr. Jason, for the opportunity to come on and to talk about Master, to share his teachings. And I wish you tremendous success in continuing to create more high quality content for pranic healing and pranic healers and non pranic healers around the world, and a tremendous amount of success in your endeavors, because I know it's not easy to do podcasts. I know it's not easy to do this format. There's a lot of things to overcome and hurdles, technological hurdles, emotional hurdles, mental hurdles, subject matter, things that are interesting and entertaining for people. So stay on the path, stay connected, keep moving forward, and I wish you the best of success.
Thank you, Christian. Yes, we're doing our part, right? We're doing our part, each one of us. So I appreciate those kind words.
Right.
Thank you. Well, thank you,
Of course.
everyone. My namaste to everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode. And if you want to contact Christian, if you want his information for his website, it will be all linked below in the show notes, in the description. And I'm sure Christian will be more than happy to reply if you have any questions or inquiries and all of the amazing things that he does. So I'm a namaste, Christian. Thank you so much. Take care, and we hope to see everyone in the next episode.